have this month. I want to show you a picture and see if you can know what this picture means. Let's see. Here. Anybody know what that's it? It's a what? Anybody knows what this might be? It's a Rolls Royce. I think it's 1951 Rolls Royce. Well, it's not just a Rolls Royce. I used to have that car when I was growing up. And it actually happened to be a radio, an AM radio. And I have no idea why I got that radio, but it was so great, such a great gift. This radio was, I used it a lot. You know, AM, who would listen to AM when they're teenagers? Well, I was one of them. And it was because I was a super duper baseball fan. And the games were passed on radio, and I used to listen to them. And I remember going a lot to the baseball field with my dad, and it was just great. I mean, it was just the best thing. They had peanuts, and they had, it was in Puerto Rico, which there's a lot of, people are very, baseball fans like here. And they used to have these oranges, and they have these really cool peelers. You've probably never seen those. And it's just, you stick the orange into this machine, like an apple peeler, and you just go like that. You just turn it, and it would just peel it. And we don't eat the orange the way people eat it here. We actually salt on it, just. So anyways, we just go to the game, and I would eat all those oranges and peanuts and enjoy the time with my dad. While at home, my mom stayed with my radio. You see, if you're a sport fan, you tend to be superstitious, right? So my mom was ironing all the clothes at home, and I told her, you have to put the radio in this station, and you got to listen to the game, because if you listen to the game, we win. So while she was ironing, she was listening to the game, obviously. You know how moms are, right? Some of you are mom, you can relate to that. And, life, it's built, and it's the treasure of these life moments in the family tree. This is like, the best thing that you can experience is those days when you're at home with your family, and you have either your traditions, or these are treasures that make us who we are. And if you don't have any of these things, if you can't go to a place where you could say, this is home for me, it is a really hard place to be at. It's just very difficult. And this series of warm memories connect us to life, to real life. And without these, if we don't have them, we're just going to be a kind of a cold type of person. And I see the self-destruction path that our society is going today. And it is just, you can look around everywhere, and it's just, we're heading on just a train that has no brakes, and it's going, and it's just self-destructing. I mean, we're just a few here hanging on, and barely hanging on, because it's just, our society is going to self-destruction. There's despair, there's depression, there's all these things happening, and at the center, at least, I feel that we offer some solutions in the physical side. I mean, we try, but still, you could have some ideas of how to fix these things, but it is like taking, giving you a mop to start, mopping the mess, when we rather just go to the tap and just stop that tap. What do we do? What can we do? And I think there's some ingredients that I like to talk to, and it might be, I'm not going to be able to expand in everything I like to talk, but I'm going to lay the foundation, and probably later on we could address it later. But there's some ingredients to have a full life, to have life, and that ingredient, one of the ingredients, it's relationships. Just the way we're born dictates that we need relationships to live. There's no way around it. You cannot be isolated. I mean, people are afraid to be isolated. So just the nature of relationship tells us that life without relationship is no life at all. And we had to add to that value or worth. And this is the a healthy self-worth concept or self-concept of ourselves. I mean, what are our purpose, our destiny? What is our purpose? If you don't have any purpose in life, basically you might as well, what do you do if you have no purpose to waking up every day? It is tough to be in that position. So value is very key to have a full life. You have to have a purpose in life. You have to have something that gets you, to where you want to be. And there's just look at what I'm saying, and you could look around our society and you could see where there's a lot of trouble, both in relationships and both in value and worth. It's just so let's go to the tap and let's try to close the tap, right? I talk to a lot of people. Says, there's people that can wake up every morning and have something. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is where my list. At least I have a list. There's people that go to work, come back home, put the TV on, fall asleep in front of the TV, get up the next morning, go to work, come back from work, turn the TV on, fall asleep. I mean, this is what's going on. There is no value. There's no worth. And how do we change that? What's going on here? Well, I think that the other component of full life, it is life or power source. Where do we come from? You see, and how do we get where we're at? How do we, it's a component of our physical being, our spiritual, our mental, our whole. And this is the essence of being. How do we engage in that life? I mean, where does it come from? Well, there's many ideas where life comes from. There is a lot of ideas. If you go to Wikipedia and just look at origin of life, you'll get a lot of information of where life could come. At the end of the day, you know what Wikipedia says? I didn't put it here, but you know what Wikipedia says? Wikipedia says, well, we're still figuring out what's the origin of life, and we just lack funding to kind of get to the bottom of it. It's like, funding? Is that really where that? It's just like, this is people writing these things, and it's like, wow, we just need funding to figure out the origin of life. You might find it funny, but let me tell you, if you read a book, Great Controversy, you're going to be surprised that this is a big, big problem in today's day. And I'm going to point to it later on, but it's just a big problem. And so how do we connect these ingredients and form, treasures in our families? How do we connect these things and form value in our families, in our relationship? How do we connect them all? That's where let's look at some of these things deeper. I have some models of sources of life. And there might be more, but this is I think is kind of accurate. And I'm just going to go through them. And they all impact the relationships we have, the value we have, and where you come from. Where you come from impacts your relationship and your value. For example, there is the independent source, where it means that, remember, I'm going to address this way. Life source, where the source of life comes from, it's equal to the divine. Okay? We understand that divine is where life comes from. Okay, so an independent means that, well, God has life and man has life, a source of life. We all have sources of life. And basically, we're all what? We're all divine. And this method of thinking is mostly the you could see the Eastern philosophies bring this to picture, where man has its own source of life, and you know it's gonna change the way that person is valued, how he addresses relationships, and his view of God is going to be completely different than probably the other models. And we're going to look into it more closely, but just giving you an example of what those means. Gifted. Well, the gifted model, it is the model where God has life and He has given man to have life in itself. So man has life as God has life. Now, but it's a gift from God. That life you have, it's a gift from God. And in this model, since man has a source of life, it doesn't matter if it's a smaller source of life or a bigger source of life, it is a source of life. So basically what it means that God gave you some batteries. He put some batteries behind you, and you have your own source, like the bunny, you know, like the bunny that was it the Energizer or Duracell or Duracell or Energizer? Okay, you got it right. I don't know. Just, you know, that bunny has energy or life from those batteries. Now, that's going to completely change the way you see your relationships and how you see your value. Let me say that most religions come in under this model. Most religions come under this model. And basically, man is immortal. The life of man, it's immortal. How did he obtain it? And how does he take to partake of it? Well, there's a lot of theories. Even in Christianity, there is different way of thinking on how we obtain that life and how we engage with that source of life. But I'm not going to go into that. And then the other one is a dependent model. Basically, only God has life. And in order for man to have it, he needs to be connected exactly to God all the time. As long as you connected with God, you have life. But it doesn't mean you have a battery source. Your life is not other than God giving you and providing life. Okay? So, how does it affect relation? Let's look at the independent model. In the dependent model, in order for me to have value, well, I'm the center of the universe because I'm divine, right? So I'm the center of the universe. I'm my own universe. Now, if I want to have more power, more value, we'll say, I would have to display that value and I'm talking about relationship. I will attract someone that I think is probably attractive. It will benefit me in somehow, or powerful, or maybe I can get a use out of that person. You see, I see this person, even though I don't care for them, I have a use for them. I can use them in some way or capacity. So I can control them to do what I want. So that way I can enhance my value, my source, my life, my source life. You see how the relationship go in this model. Now I remember working with people that believe in this model. And these are the people that play a lot of politics you know. They figure out who the enemies are. They figure out who they can get advantage of, and they just seek them. You know, and one day they tell you how nice you are, but on your back, you know, they'll crush you, and they'll do whatever it takes to get up the ladder, if that's what it takes, because that's how they get their value from. You see, they need to enhance their source of life. Now, these you could see also this on the old man, rich man, marrying a very young woman. This is disgusting to me, actually. I can't even look at it too much myself. Sometimes some people say this is you know, I don't know, a type of prostitution, I would say, but it's just disgusting. But this is the mentality of the divine. Man is divine. Or the other model is, you know, the selfie with a celebrity. You know, oh, I'm getting a selfie with a celebrity. What does that mean? Well, I'm getting value by association with this person. Now, this is a bad picture for this celebrity, but still, I found it funny when I found it. But anyways, you know, this lady is saying to her group of followers, hey, you know what? Here's my value. I got a picture with this celebrity, you know. I got this value source. Now, the other model, which is the gifted model. It says, man has life. God give him life. How does that impact our relationship? How does that impact relationship? Well, it impacts it in this way. It impacts it that since God is the source of our life, as long as God tells me what to do, this is what I follow. I follow what God tells me to do. And these guidelines that he has set are going to dictate my relationship or my value with him. Because at the end of the day, listen up, at the end of the day, he's a bigger power source of life. I'm a little power source of life. He'll dictate if I go to hell or I go to heaven. So he's at the utmost looking and saying, okay, since my life is immortal anyways, you see, my life is immortal. It's not like I die. I don't die. So since I don't die, you know, my relationship with all the things that this power source of life have for me, as long as I do them, as long as I please him, I can walk that you know, pleasing him. He's determining if I go to heaven or I go to hell. Because life is immortal. Whoa, you were thinking, wait a second. What are you saying here? Well, let's just let me finish. And for some models of religions, you know, this takes the person in a relationship and say, okay, let me look. Are you orthodox? Are you following exactly what God tells you or not? You're not following. You don't follow. Oh, you know what? My version of the rules are better than your versions of the rules. And the versions. You see, this is where all most of religions fall on, and this is one of the things against religion. People say, you know what? You know how many wars have been fought because the control of somebody saying, you know, God said this is for me, this is what you need to do, and you're not doing, so I'm going to just destroy you. This is a control system because I have life of myself. I have a source of life, and the only thing that it's important for me is to follow these guidelines because the bigger source of life, it's going to determine what our outcome is. You know, you could have Islam, you could have a lot of Christianity, you know, persecutions, crusades, you call it, you name it. And there's even people in the churches that come with that mentality, and they're the heretic, you know, finder. Yeah, you're a heretic. You know, let's see if you can throw this person out of the church because they're, you know, it's not following exactly what God has said. basis of this in relationship is control. It is control. And appreciation by works of what I do. And the other one is dependent life. Basically what this means is that when I have a relationship with someone, that person is being gifted life from God. I mean, it's being his life is depending on the life of God. My life is depending on the life of God. His life is depending on the life of God. So meaning that if Kenny here has life, is because of what? What's the reason for his life? God. If I have life, the reason is what? God. So, when I have a relationship with him, what type of relationship do we have? It's a different relationship. Especially, you know what? Where this hits core is in the authority model. This is where it hits the core, and this is where our society is completely getting destroyed, in the authority model. You see, when I have a boss that is just not a good boss, it's not a good person as a boss. When I look at him, what do I see? What do I see? He's not a good boss with me. You know, I see, depending on how I see where my life comes and where his life comes from, I react with a relationship with him. I have a bad boss, and if I believe that his life is depending on the life of God, and my life is depending on the life of God, you know what? God will take care of him as he will take care of me. Do you follow me what I'm saying here? See, what about I have a bad father or mother? What about, the bad policeman, bad governor, bad president? See, this hits to the core where society is failing right now. And I'm telling you, Satan is having a party with this problem. He's having a party because the minute you change your life source, the minute your view of God, your view of relationships is completely changed. This is very important. We feel that, these are issues that I'm not can't cover today, but these are really big issues, and the Bible is laying that down from the beginning, and we're going to see a story on it. Let me tell you that the biblical view of life, and this is just a couple verses, it says, "For with thee is the fountain of life. In thy light we shall see light." This is talking about God. And in Acts 17:28 says, "For in him we live, we move, and have our being." As some of our poets have said, we are his offsprings. In him we live, we move, and have our being. Everything. The Bible concept of life is a dependent model. It's where you're alive today because God is allowing you to have it. That bad boss that I talk about, he's alive today because God is allowing it. There's a quote in Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing, page 52 and 53. It says that, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it says that when Christ was going to the cross, they were spitting on him, mocking him, doing all these things to him. He didn't go and say, "God, I'm through with this. These people don't deserve anything. You see how they treat me? They don't even care about what's going on here." He didn't say that. What did he say? If you read that quote, it says that every single thing that was going through his life at that moment, he saw it as the Father allowing it for his good. What a thought. That quote it's just amazing. I need to memorize it so I can not paraphrase it. It's just an amazing quote. You see? It's amazing when you consider that. Now, This is the biblical model of life, and this is what those verses are saying, and there's more to it. Even our love for our children come from God. It is the fruit of the Spirit, is love, patience. All these things come from God, okay? So if somebody stopped loving you, now, I'm just going to point out that the key for this, to maintain life in this model, it is submission. That is the key. And you know what? I had probably mentioned it before, and it just gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. I think the second angel's message is described in Mary Magdalene. You see, we think that, we're these fighters that are going to, it is the character of Christ represented in us that is going to change the world. It's going to take the world by storm. When this lady was washing the feet of Christ before his sacrifice, the people that were around Christ, the closest, his homies, that were with him, they took offense of that. They took offense. She just hit it on their face, she just slapped them on the face, because you know what? Her character indicated the life of Christ. And Christ says, wherever the gospel is preached, this lady is going to be preached. There's a sermon right there that we probably need to look at. Because if the gospel needs to be preached with her in mind, there's something from her. And that experience that she went through right when she was washing Jesus' feet, that it's for us to benefit from the gospel. The key for life in this model is submission. It is a submissive life, and no one wants to be submissive. No one wants to be submissive. The first one that didn't want to be submissive was Lucifer. He saw God and he said, you know what? I'm seeing someone and I'm hating someone. He says he's a murderer since the beginning. He hated the life of Christ. And I'm not going to go into the details of it. You can read it in Patriarchs and Prophets, what went on, or Story of Redemption, or Great Controversy. But there was some hatred. And it had to do with Christ and his life. Christ demonstrated the way to the Father. How do we relate? And he hated that. He said, I want to be like the Most High. I want to sit in the north. I want to sit in you see, the moment you lose your source of life, here's how your mind changes. The minute you change where your life comes from. He says he looked in himself and he what? He saw what? I have a source life. I have a power in me. Look at this. I have value coming from what? From within. So, as soon as he changed the source of his life, his mentality changed. And now, where was he going to get that value? You see, when I learned this concept, I started learning the power of words. Words have a lot of power. And they have power to bless or to curse. Proverbs 18:21. And I, as the head of my family, I have a big responsibility. I have to tread carefully with my words. What do I tell my daughters? And even in the moments of like desperation, what do I tell them has a lot of power to bless or to curse. And this blessing is what God in this model, this is what he offers. How do we know that? The first words that God spoke, that we know in the Bible, he directly spoke. He spoke to Christ and says, This is my beloved Son, in whom I well please. What are those words? Those are blessings. And that was telling it to humanity. That was encompassing you and me. Blessing. And that's the way God speaks. You see, that's the way God speaks. Now, as soon as Lucifer decided to go against God and look at his source of life and think that he has a source of life, those words didn't mean anything to him anymore. So where was he going to get his value from? Well, it would get from performance. He would have to perform in order to provide that value. And he has brought that system to the nations. That system of performance by achievement and value through that performance. This right here, what I'm telling you, it is the core of Babylon. Isn't this the great Babylon that I have built with my hands, said Nebuchadnezzar. Isn't this the greatest thing that I have done? Immediately he became a beast, or like a beast. You see, the problem with this model of life source within and value through that, it is the following. You're going to have good performance one day. Oh man, I did good. And everybody says, you're a superhero. You did great. Awesome job. But the problem that you have is going to be time. Time, you cannot perform at the top all the time. You're going to have your valleys. And in those valleys, you know what you're going to feel? A failure and depressed and worthless because you're going to those valleys. And then you go and gain more and perform again because you desire that value again. And you go perform more and you're up there in the wave, riding the wave in the performance wave, and then boom, it dies down again and it's a failure. And then you feel like a failure, worthless. This is the model of life within self. It's a never-ending circle of mountains and valleys. In the prophet Isaiah says when he was prophesying for Christ, he's going to level the mountains. And that mountains of pride, and he leveled them because his life shows something amazing. Now, Lucifer brought this to the earth, to the world. The perfect representation of character of God was in earth, and he brought it. And he says in Genesis 3, 4, and 5, it says, and the serpent said to the woman, you shall not surely die, or God knows in the day you eat of it, then your eyes shall be open, and you shall be as God, knowing good and evil. Don't you see what's going on? He's bringing his philosophy of life within himself and say, you know what, Eve? Your life doesn't depend on God. You have no dependence on God. You have life in yourself. You will not die. This seems so simple, but there's so much in it. You shall not surely die. Now, and you know what? If you take from this, your life that you have within is going to be enhanced. You're going to be like God. So here's Eve picking up, but here's the children of Eve figuring out what they can attain to form that value within. We are all her children. So this is a problem that we're facing, and the devil was very cunning. He knew what he was doing from the beginning. He could have come with any other thing, but he came to the core. He knew that if he changed your source of life, he will change your value and your relationships. Your relationships now are what? What I can attain for my purpose of value. You see, he was destroying God to the core. Because in order for have a life through the dependent model of God, you have to have a relationship with him. You depend on him, right? So he was going to the core and destroying that model. He was destroying God's model. Now, you know, this is very well exemplified in the next chapter. This is the next chapter. I mean, it doesn't take much to see this. And we'll go through it, and I'll try to go quickly. It says in Genesis 2, and she bore, this is Eve, again, his brother Abel. Now, again, because she already had Cain in the first verse. I skipped it. And Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Now, you're going to see something in the Bible. I'm going to just pay attention. Every time the Bible mentions the name of someone that is introducing, it introduces them with who they belong to, who's the source of their life. Like, for example, when Saul talked about David, he never said David. He says, where's the son of Jesse? Where's the son of Jesse? Where's the son of Joseph? Where's the, Isaiah, son of, this son of Barjona? Because the Bible is trying to tell you that your value comes from your source, where your source is, your relationship with that source. You see, it is a value by relationship, not by performance or achievement. And now this is the first place I see in the Bible, and one of the only ones, that when it introduces someone, it introduces them by what they do, by their performance, what exactly they're doing. Abel was a keeper of the sheep, and Cain was a tiller of the ground. It's identify them with their jobs or their performance. You go to a place, right, and you're new to this place, and our society is just trained to do this. You go to a place and you're talking to people and it says, so what do you do? Oh yeah, I'm a janitor. Or, I'm a doctor in this place, and this isn't what our society is built for. It's just, what do you do is who you are. Now, this is what the Bible is introducing for a reason. Let's go to continue reading. And in the end of days, it happened that Cain brought to Jehovah an offering of the fruit of the ground. And Abel also brought the firstlings of his flock and of the fat of it. And Jehovah had respect to Abel and to his offerings, but he did not have respect to Cain and to his offering. And Cain glowed in anger, and his face fell. Now, these are two brothers. They come at an appointed time, because it was the same day, I guess, same time. They both built an altar. They were following God's order, God's command, what God wanted for them. But one brought a lamb, and the other one brought from the fruit of his labor. Two different things. And it says that God accepted one and not accepted the other. Now, there's a problem with Cain. And the problem that Cain has is that, he took from, I would say he gathered probably the best produce, the best thing from his garden. And I always say this, what happens when you don't, when your best is not valued? What happens? How do you feel? Man, I'm doing all this for you, and look at you. It's like, imagine you're doing all this work for someone and you're like wasted, and the person just really doesn't appreciate it. How do you feel? Oh, you feel, you get energy again. You're like wasted, get all the energy. Because what? You have put all this effort and you're looking for that value from what the effort you put into it. And he was looking for that value, and he just didn't accept it. His acceptance came from one source, was that lamb. That's where his acceptance was. But it's like, I can't get my mind into getting my acceptance from a lamb. You see, who's the lamb? It is Christ. So he's like, I can't get I cannot wrap my mind into that. My acceptance has to come from my labor. And he got really angry. It says he got angry, and I understand him if you have that mentality. I mean, imagine. It says in verse, continue reading, and Cain talked with his brother Abel. And it happened when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Now, Abel and Cain talked, and I know that Abel was encouraging Cain. You know what? Just your value is, you're good. You're so good with what you're doing. Look at all these things, all these produce. They look really good. But you know what? What God desires you is to have a dependence on Him, not dependence on you. See? I just want to make a parenthesis. As soon as you change your source value, your will is twisted. Okay, but just throwing that out there. Now, he had to choose. Just like Adam had to choose and Eve had to choose, Cain had to choose. He had to choose, said, you know what? I see what you're saying probably, but I have made all this effort. It's not fair that all this effort goes to waste. Look at all these things. They're going to waste. All my effort, my labor has gone to waste. And Abel says, but you know what? It's just the anger coming. The self-dependence. I have a source of life showed here, the anger. And he went and killed his brother. Who are you? Look at this. Who are you to tell me what to do? I'm your older brother. Who are you to tell me what to do? Don't we see that every day? There's like race battles going on between polices and people, and it's just the tension that is going in society right now. It is just this same thing. What's going on here? And it says, and Jehovah said unto Cain, where is your brother Abel? And he said, I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? You see, my source of my value system, my model is not dependent on a dependent model. My model is a self-value. My relationships is what I can gain from them. I don't care about my brother. I don't care about what happened to him. My value comes from what I can get from people or what I can achieve for my power source. And now you're cursed more than the ground which opened your mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. Now, God talking to him says, and now you are cursed more. Was God cursing Cain? The question is, was God cursing Cain? Well, let me say that God hasn't cursed anyone. Look, this is what God cursed. When you till the ground, it will not again give its strength to you. And you shall be a vagabond and a fugitive in the earth. What God cursed was that earth. You see, by cursing the earth was cursing his value. Right there. He had made the earth his value system. You see, the labor of his hands was what made Cain who he was. And God says, now it's not going to produce the same way. What do you think he's going to feel? Accursed. This is a curse because you're taking away what defines who I am. You see, God was always trying to point it to the real value he had. Where was his value? If God allowed that earth to flourish with his hands, he could not point him to the real value that he has. Where was his value? It was in the Lamb. It was in the Lamb of God. And God was trying to point him to that Lamb, to that source of value. And it's pointing you today to get out of the system of Babylon into the system of God, which life is dependent on Him. And now you're accepted by that Lamb. This is your acceptance. That's all you need. You need that Lamb. You need a relationship with that Lamb. In order to have a relationship with God, you need that Lamb. And it is a submissive relationship. Now, Cain said to Jehovah, my punishment is greater than I can bear. I mean, think about it. If you're a shepherd and God cursed the land that is not going to make, good produce anymore, you don't care. It's not my job. It's not. But for him, that was his value, was the work he did with the land. That was a punishment. And he couldn't bear it. He couldn't bear it because that was who he was defined for. Do you follow what I'm saying? Yes. I mean, and it says, behold, you have driven me out of the face of the earth, and I shall be hidden from your face, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall be that anyone who find me will try to kill me. Now, a vagabond, if you look at that word, the meaning of that word, it's somebody that has no purpose. It's somebody that is worthless. Just look it up in Strong's. It has worthless, no purpose. He will have no purpose now because his value system was crushed. Now, I just want to make an appeal, and I can't continue because it's time's up, but there's more that we have not even uncovered on the system of Babylon with this model of life sources. I'm just going to point you to one quote in Great Controversy. And it says, Satan has long been preparing for his final effort to deceive the world. The foundation of his work was laid by the assurance given to Eve in Eden. You surely shall not die. In the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Genesis 3, 4, and 5. Little by little, it's not in big steps, little by little, he has prepared the way for his masterpiece of deception in the development of spiritualism. He has not yet reached the full accomplishments of his design, but it will be reached in the last remnant of time. Except those who are kept by the power of God through the faith in His Word, the whole world will be swept into the ranks of His delusion. The people are first being lured to a fatal security, to be awakened only by the outpouring of the wrath of God. When we see this, we think about, life immortal. Life is immortal, and we believe that life is mortal. But let me tell you, it is a delusion. We sometimes, or most of the time, we partake of the same life is immortal concept because of the way we see it on our relationships, and we see it on our value, how we value ourselves. If we value ourselves with our performance and our achievements and what we do and not do, we're just partaking of the same model that Satan told Eve. Now, if our dependence is completely on God, if God tells you, Mike, worship on the Sabbath and praise Him on the Sabbath, where do you go for that? Where do you look for that? Do you go inside to do something from inside? Is that where you go to? As the source for obeying, for example? Where do you go from? Where do you go to? That all depends what you believe your source of life is and what model. It all depends. If God says, hey, I want you to eat right, where do you go for that? Oh, you look inside and say, man, I just can't change anything here. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm going to try. Where do you go to these things? It just, there's a delusion, and it's the Babylonian delusion, and I'm just trying to lay the foundation because we're going to probably open this up a little bit more later. So think about it, and I just want you to depend on that lamb. That sacrifice. That's where the verse is, we have been, beloved, you have been accepted, and you have been accepted in the beloved. That's our acceptance. That's our value.